I'm hoping so.
Be nice.
And we are live.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Humanity Happy Hour on Thursday, April Fool's Day. We are not going to be fooling around in our conversations today. So hopefully
we're not. Oh, no.
When you guys jump on, we want you to let us know where you are jumping on from. And if you're watching on the replay, be sure and use the hashtag replay and let us know where you're coming in from. Humanity Happy Hour was a happy hour. We decided to just have a good time and talk about things in the workplace. And we're under the umbrella of bringing humanity together, where we want to work with the employee and the employers to create a great workplace for everybody to work.
Mm-hmm.
This is just one of 3 presentations that we have. We also have Share and Care with Sandy on Tuesdays, and we also have Conversations for Humanity on Wednesday. So if you can check it out on either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, or watch our replays on LinkedIn and YouTube, feel free to jump in. As I said, as you're jumping on today, let us know where you're coming in from. And if you're watching on the replay, also use the hashtag replay and let us know where you're coming from. Today's topic, we decided that we could talk about what are the qualities of the best leaders that you've ever had. And more importantly, maybe at the end of the conversation, we will talk about what qualities we actually have learned from leaders throughout our work history and have taken and adopted those into our everyday life. I came across a great article in Forbes magazine about the 10 unique perspectives that make a great leader. And what they did is they surveyed 10 different people to find out what they kind of thought was their idea of a great leader. And there were a couple of them that really stuck out with me, and I thought these would be a good place to start the conversation. One of them was that a good leader will articulate a clear vision. And this person had said, I'm going to read this. A great leader possesses a clear vision, is courageous, has integrity, honesty, humility, and a clear focus. He or she is a strategic planner and believes in teamwork. Great leaders help people reach their goals and are not afraid to hire people that might be even better than them, to take pride in accomplishments for the team, not necessarily for themselves. And for me, that just said it all. And, if I were going to answer the question of what makes a great leader, they're all right there. So what do you guys think?
Let's start off with none other than Brian, because he just jumped on today.
Yeah, we can start with Brian.
You sure?
We're talking about the qualities of a good leader.
Be careful what you wish for.
That's why
and he's not fooling it either.
It's interesting.
We love starting with you.
Good, Carla. I caught a couple of the last things you just mentioned there in terms of managers or leaders hiring certain levels of people. And I'm not sure if you're familiar. There's an individual. His name is Guy Kiyosaki. He used to work for Apple. He's a VC and so forth, and he has an interesting talk. He talks about baldosity, where people hire bozos in the workplace, and it's literally what you're talking about in some ways, that A-level people hire other A-level people, B people hire B and C-level people, and C-level hire so forth, and it's a kind of how they view themselves and view others that ultimately organizations end up having a whole bunch of B and C level types of people because certain people are threatened by people who are smarter, better, bigger, faster, stronger. And it's an interesting kind of talk, and he's entertaining to begin with to watch and to listen about it. But in terms of qualities, I think I've mentioned a couple. I'm kind of an anti-qualityist in terms of what we listen or learn from people. It's our fabrication. I mean, I don't know what charisma looks like, sounds like, and feels like. You know, I can only define to you what it shows up for me as. You know, it might look different to you or Sandy or Chris or anyone for that matter. It's going to be different. One of the things that's kind of interesting in terms of leaders is I don't think being liked is a prerequisite to being a leader. I mean, if you look at world leaders around the world, I mean, their popularity is less than 50% most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that almost half the people who they're in charge of don't like them, and actually don't like them. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy. Like I don't know what, you know. I think leadership is what's wanted and needed at that moment, whatever moment that is. And I think some of the best leaders, how I would describe them, are they have an ability to create conversations for possibilities that weren't there prior to that conversation. And whether that, you know, I don't even think it's their job to set a vision or implement a vision. I think that they, you know, we give them more credit for their success of a company, and they get all the blame for all the bad success of the company or lack of success. You know, it's like a quarterback in the NFL. It's like, well, the team wins because of Tom Brady, but the team loses because of Tom Brady. And we fail to recognize that there's, you know, 21 other people on the team, you know, playing offense and defense that have an impact on whether the team's successful or not. You know, so I think they get a bit too much credit and they get a bit too much blame. You know, but in terms of,
I think sometimes you got a leader that has a vision, and you know, there's a project that has to be done or whatever, and there's a lot of people under them like, okay, just tell me what to do and I'm going to do it, and yes, they're gonna do it. And I look at it as I'm not there to be liked.
Yeah,
I'm there to get the job done.
Get the job done.
Yeah, I think we talked about this the other day. I mean, everyone wants to be a leader, right? Up until they have to make a decision and they do this. I mean, there's a lot of hard decisions. There are choices that have to be made in a business. Like, a lot of it's uncomfortable. And I don't think people recognize the difficulty of that, especially if you've never done it before. You know, I mean, I always find it funny when announcers in sports or people talking heads say, oh, act like you've been there before, even though you've never been there before. It's like, well, what does that mean? Like, we want people to be a certain way, and then when they're not, we're upset. It's kind of bizarre. I don't know. But leadership, to me, the best leaders are the ones who create conversations for possibility. Because ultimately, that's what an organization is. It's a network of conversation.
So give me a good example of that.
Well, let's just say you, Sandy, work in the healthcare or medical field. Let's just say that your organization views the future coming at it as, you know, you have to buckle down, cut costs. You know, it's going to be really tough for the next 6 to 12 months. We have to really make sure what's going to happen because that's what society tells you. You're going to behave like that. Whereas maybe another person might present future looking differently for you, that, you know, we live into the future that we see coming to us. And very often it's defaulted from our past experiences. We take that, throw it out into the future, and we live right into it because, hey, that's what we compare to. But what if there isn't in the future? That suppose the future was bright and you didn't know what was going to happen and you could create it any way you want. I think a leader has the ability to change the conversation and make it something that wasn't possible before in the way in which people were going about it before that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does.
So what characteristics have you taken from people that you have worked with in the past? And I say leaders, I believe that everybody can be a leader because you can set an example in how you work. You know, for example, if you're in a negative work culture and you decide that you're going to adopt a positive attitude and not get into the gossip and get into the drama, you're setting a tone that's different from what's going on. So in some essence, you're a leader. Or you're presenting problems, and instead of just complaining about them, you're actually presenting solutions. So I think anybody can be a leader. You know, I think back to my high school days. I had a short little 5'4" roly-poly Italian guy from Sicily who was my Latin teacher, and he was, you know, when I think back of him and the way he interacted with kids back then, he was one of these people that found the best in you and helped raise you up to be the best that you could be in whatever it was. You know, those kind of characteristics. And I never looked at him like a leader or a boss or anything like that. But those were like different things that impacted my life that I took away that made me be more insightful of building people up and seeing a vision in people and helping bring out the best in people, those kind of things.
Yeah, I don't know if there's one particular quality or trait. There's lots of conversations that I've been involved in that are very, very different than your average conversation. But everything that I've kind of created is through my own experience or through my own discovery, if you will. And I don't mean it to be right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just my experience. But I think there's a couple of components that I look at that have shifted. And the main one is that I'm causing the matter. That what I say and what I do can have an impact on others, and what others say and do could have an impact on me if I allow it to. That circumstances and situations have nothing to do with how I respond. Like, my actions aren't a reflection of who I am. And it's kind of an interesting thing, because you're talking about, you know, leaders and what they do or don't do and so forth, that, you know, maybe we have a lot more control in our life than we believe ourselves to do. And Carla, I think I alluded to this kind of in message we were going back and forth, that, you know, if you believe you're going to get sick, chances are you're going to get sick. If you live your life not believing you're going to get sick, doesn't mean you won't, but you have a better chance of not being sick. Like, right. We have a way of, our body has a way to respond stuff that I can create it in such a way that works. So if there's a trait, it would probably be the ability to be open to new possibilities is something that I probably would take from someone, whether they were a leader or a coach or whomever, that, yeah, maybe there's a different way of going about it than perhaps I was going about it before. That's not to say that what you were doing before was wrong, right, or indifferent. Just, it depends on the intention, right? I mean, if you're not getting the results you want, maybe we're the ones, maybe I need to shift something to get a different result. What's that, the definition of insanity? If I keep going down, you know, bang my head against the wall, and, you know, eventually it's going to hurt, right? But, you know, I think there's too much looking outside for answers. And I remember seeing that in the classroom, you know, that students do the dead fish act, you know, blah, 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 teacher, heal me, tell me what to learn and I'll go learn it. But when you turn it around and say, you know, have you ever considered that maybe your teacher doesn't know what he or she is talking about? They never once consider that as an opportunity.
I never considered that.
I mean, it's almost heresy to say that maybe Dr. Fauci doesn't know anything about pandemics. Like, he's in that position, but it's like, why do we just assume he knows? Like, he's been through all the pandemics before? Like, you know, it's a bit like a life coach kind of thing, who say, well, here's how to live life. It's like, well, that's kind of interesting. When was the last time you went through life? Is this like your third go around? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, we look for these answers from someone else to be like, tell me how to live my life. I don't know. And this comes back to what Chris had mentioned with building a business in so many ways. I reference this back to golf. A lot of people ask, well, how am I supposed to swing a golf club or hit a golf ball? The first question I ask back, or my answer is, I don't know, but let's find out. Like,
yes,
you're designed differently. Your body moves differently. Like, Chris wants to build a business on humanity. Okay, I've never built a business in humanity, so I don't know. Let's find out.
Yeah.
What do you want it to look like, sound like, and feel like? Like, instead of just imposing, this is what I do, because what I do is different. Like, there's no such thing as a fictional book outside of one that has numbers and statistics in it. Everything is fiction. I mean, it's all written from the author's perspective. It's their reality. It doesn't make it true for you. I mean, you ever read a book and someone's like, oh, there's a lot of truth in that. The person next to you says, oh, it's a piece of garbage. Well, okay. What's real? Is the truth in the book or the truth in the reader? So I think leadership has a way of creating conversations that bring out things from people that they might not recognize that are there, or wish that they had better capacity to express. So yeah,
What's so funny, Chris?
Well,
this is what Graham just said to us. How can I play like Nicholas, Brian?
Why would you want to play like Jack Nicklaus?
So you could win tournaments.
Come on, Graham, you got to reply to that. You got to respond to that. It's like what you said before to us in a call. It's like, you're already a marathon runner, even though people have told you you're not a marathon runner, even though you ran a marathon. You're already there.
That's the essence of most people live their life. If they do something, they get to have something, and then once they have it, they get to be happy. But imagine shifting that and being happy, then doing stuff, and then having stuff from that doing. It's a different orientation to it. But yeah, because if not, it's when I become a marathon runner, I'll be happy, and you're never satisfied.
It doesn't work that way.
Well, you never get there. It's like trying to make a difference in the world. You never can make enough difference in the world. Because you're always going to ask, or your mind's trained to say, oh, I should have done this. I could have done this better. I could have done that better. Okay. So
hindsight is always
leadership's
always 20/20.
Yeah, leadership's fascinating though. There's a lot of banter about that in the last year and a half. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's so much evidence of leaders in my question would be, Carla, is that do we consider a good leader simply because the results were desirable? Like, are we playing the result there?
Yeah.
And is that all that matters? Because if you just want a result, then what does it matter what the leader says, does, or doesn't do, as long as you get the result? But I see a lot of people with this outcry of leaders have to be empathetic, and they have to be caring, and they have to be nice, and they have to pet you on the head, whatever. But is that their purpose, or is the purpose to get the job done? Right? I mean,
sounds like a kindergarten teacher.
No, I mean, let me ask you this: coming from the military, I mean, what's the objective in the military? Is the military
they don't pat you on the head and talk nice to you?
Well, what's the purpose? Is it to get the objective done and fulfill your mission, or is it to make sure that you're happy fulfilling your mission? I mean, what does it matter?
Yeah, yeah.
You just have something to do.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you go around being mean to people. I mean, that's that's kind of a given, I would hope. But it's a little like we talked about once, Chris. You were talking about investing in a company that doesn't go along with your social values or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you want it to be sustainable and so forth. Okay. I mean, depends on what your intention is.
And to me, that's the biggest part of it. We have to be intentional in how we do things each and every single day, whether it be from a leadership point of view, either from our point of view, being that team member or team player, or even I call a partner, to be honest with you. We got to be intentional in how we do things, because for us, it's like you said to me before, Brian, is if we give up our power to others and expect others to do what they are not doing in our eyes, and
Right.
we, in fact, we're thinking that they are supposed to be doing that, so like having all the answers. Well, this leader has all the answers. Well, maybe they don't. You know.
I have no idea. I mean, if you say they do, they do. Depends what you believe.
You can't be a good leader if you don't listen.
Yeah,
You gotta
absolutely.
listen to your people. And that's part of the conversation piece, Brian. You know,
Absolutely.
leaders, if they listen to their people, they will learn things. They will learn about their people, and they will learn other things that can maybe be put into play that will be advantageous to everyone. They don't know everything, and they can't presume that they know everything. But everybody else on the team may have perspectives and skills and abilities to benefit the team. So if you listen and you pay attention and you allow them to have their voice, and sometimes we move forward with things that they suggest, that makes you a good leader, because nobody knows everything. I mean, it's not possible. And I think that the really good leaders are the ones that do pay attention to the people on their team, people that they work with, and give them an opportunity to contribute and encourage them. It's the same thing in the classroom, Brian. I mean, if you
Completely agree.
if you spoon feed everything to the students, they won't remember half of it. But if you give them assignments and you give them activities where they have to come up with the answers, they'll remember it better, because they've got to figure it out. And it's very important that people learn how to problem solve and how to think and how to do things. And I think that good leadership, whether you're leading a classroom or you're leading a team or whatever, if you can get your people to think and to problem solve and to contribute so that we can do things collaboratively. When people have a stake in some kind of decision or some kind of change, they are far more likely to embrace it and use it than if you impose things on them. That's a very uncomfortable thing for most human beings. We don't like that. So if we have the opportunity to have a voice in this decision, there's a far better chance that it will actually work, because it's the process. You know, the transition is when you're getting everything organized and up and running. The change is the actual event, but we're not going to have the event if we don't have a good transition process.
Yeah.
And that means involving the people and giving them the opportunity to have some input and to have enough time to learn whatever they have to learn with regard to how this change is going to work. And if we don't allow that, it's not going to happen. And it's a matter, when change is in the air around human beings don't really like change. And when it's in the air, rumors abound. So you've got to address those rumors. You've got to give your people compelling reasons why this change is going to be advantageous. And what do they think? And
what's in it for them?
Yeah, exactly. What's in it for them? And how do they think we should roll this out? Are there things that they would like to see happen? And there's nothing wrong with involving them in that way. Because again, then you're showing that you trust them and you value their input, and it makes them feel good, and it makes them feel like they fit into the jigsaw puzzle that is this organization, whatever that means. When people feel that they fit in and that they're contributing, then, it's just, they're not going to run away anywhere, anytime soon. And in the end, if you give them extra responsibilities and challenge them and so on and so forth, again, you're going to keep them. You keep imposing things and telling everybody you have to do it this way and this way, and they'll look at you and say, bloody well, do it yourself. I mean, who cares? It doesn't have to be done this way. This is the out. This is what we want at the end. How you get from A to B, you do it. Go ahead, off you go.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be done the way I do it. Why? I mean, who cares? I mean, no one should care that you do it exactly the way I do it. As long as we get what we want in the end, I don't care how you get there. It doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't, never has.
I agree, Sandy. I mean, people get caught up in, though, that they want it done their way because they want to be seen as having the answers or knowing the answers or they're right. And, their identity is tied to it somehow or another, whatever. I mean, it's a little like, do you want to save the world, or do you want to get credit for saving the world?
Yeah, well, that doesn't endear you to people. And also, there are leaders who, when somebody makes a suggestion, they take it as theirs. Well, I'm sorry, that's also wrong. You've got to give credit where credit is due. And if you do that, then you're going to have far better cooperation, and you'll have much more opportunity to hear these different things. You won't miss things. I mean, you miss things if you don't give people the opportunity to voice their opinion or make suggestions or whatever. You miss a lot of things if people don't feel comfortable doing that because they get put down, or you take it as yours and all this kind of stuff. It's wrong.
We see a lot of that, though. We see a lot of people take credit for things that they didn't do.
I agree. Yes. And it's terrible. I think it's a terrible, terrible way to lead in any situation. I mean, one of the things that my dad was a very difficult father, but he was a very good boss. And he always complimented people when they did a good job. And he also always encouraged people to try new things. And, if they wanted to learn something new, he would be happy to take them in the lab or sit them down and show them how to do it, whatever. And it gave people the opportunity to shine, if you will. And he always did things to reward us. We not only got bonuses at Christmas and out for a nice dinner, but we always did something fun during the year, a few different things. And he would pick up the tab. Once we went whitewater rafting, and he would always take the entire office to a continuing education course out of town. We would go down to Seattle, we would go up north to Prince George, we'd go over to the island, and he would pick up the bill for all of it, and it was fun. And it also made us, spend time together on something that we were doing together, and
outside of work.
Yeah. Like sometimes we would play baseball and then we'd go out for dinner. Or once we went whitewater rafting, we went out for dinner afterwards. We did fun things as an office, and it was good. It made the connections between all of us. And again, to the point where then we'd help each other. I mean, it was a team. And as I said before, if somebody needed a hand, somebody would, especially if they had nothing to do right then, they'd come and help. It's a matter of keeping your eyes and ears open to see what's going on. And if there's something you can do to help somebody else, why wouldn't you do it? It doesn't make sense. Like I said, if I had a patient not show up, I'd go into the office. Do you need me to phone? Do you want me to confirm some appointments? Do you want me to pull charts? Do you want me to file charts? Do you want me to phone the supply companies and order some things that we've got a list for here? What difference does it make? It's just a matter of if the other hygienist was doing a perio charting and she had nobody to write it down for her. So I'd go write it down for her. Who cares? Sometimes I had a dentist writing it down for me, depending on what he was doing. But that was how the office worked. We paid attention and we helped each other because we were a team and we worked together. And it made it fun, Brian, and it made it nice. You felt comfortable in there because you knew if you had a problem, there was somebody that would help you. And all felt that way. And that was because that was how my dad ran things. And so everybody worked that way. And it made it a nice place to work, as opposed to the anger management guy that, that was not fun. But
it sounds like your dad was a big impression on you.
Well, he did in a lot of ways. Not all of them were good. But a lot of the things from a professional point of view were good. As a parent, he was a very difficult parent, and that's because his mother was a terrible parent, and he ended up parenting the way she did. And because I was the oldest, I got the same crap that he got from her. I was responsible for my younger siblings, and every time they screwed up, it was my fault. Well, that's what he did to him. But that's not how he ran the office.
Yeah.
So, it was different at work, and I had a better relationship with him professionally than I did, as his daughter.
Oh, wow.
But in the end, we worked things out because when my dad got very sick, I couldn't let him go without sorting out a lot of these things that were, kind of in the background. And so it's funny, I phoned him up and made an appointment to have a chat with him. Literally, I made an appointment and I went to his house. And he was very funny because he looks at me and he goes, "So, you never liked the way I parented you, did you?" And I looked at him and I said, "No, because you criticized everything I did." He looked at me, he says, no, I didn't. I said, okay, name one thing you didn't criticize. So he thinks and thinks and thinks. And I said, I never criticized the way you walk. I said, yes, you did. So it's just, but we had it out.
Yeah.
And after that, and between that meeting and the time he died, we didn't have this animosity and this difficulty between us anymore. He actually said things to me that I'd never heard from him that were positive and encouraging and all kinds of things. It was very interesting. Sadly, my siblings never sorted it out with my dad before he died. And then, you're left with this, well, what can you do now? You're stuck with this garbage that's hanging around and you just didn't get rid of it. But neither of them did that, which was too bad. So we didn't have that with our mother. Her mother was, she was totally different from my dad. And, it is interesting how people parent. I mean, there's no question, about that. And a lot of it, as you said, Carla, is because they parent the way they were parented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's the most common thing that people do. I made a definite decision that I wasn't going to parent my kids the way my dad parented me. There was no way I was going to enforce that on my kids and make them into the overachiever that I am.
Yeah, well, I said that with my kids. I wasn't going to, my parents were big spankers, and my brother got more of that than I did. And my brother used to say, tell him you did it and we won't get in as much trouble. But, I just said I wasn't going to parent my kids that way.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah,
and also, kids are different, and you can't parent them the same way. You've got to adjust just like you do with people that you're dealing with. You can't deal with everybody in exactly the same way because it doesn't work.
Because everybody's different.
And so you've got to talk to them in different ways. You've got to support them in different ways. You've got to, whatever it is. And if you haven't listened and paid attention and learned who they are and what buttons to press and how to talk to them, and as we spoke the other day, what kind of person they are.
Right.
And you're never going to be successful with them. And if you're going to have a successful high performance team, you need to know who your people are and you need to know how to deal with them so that you can get the most out of them. And when you do that, then people feel good about themselves and they feel confident, which means that they're going to work better and everybody wins. Then they feel good, they're doing their job well, and all of us are happy because they're really contributing to the team. I mean, it's a win-win all the way around, but you have to deal with people appropriately, and everybody's different. And if you're not paying attention, you won't pick it up.
Yeah, everybody is different. And they have to feel comfortable coming to you saying, I don't know how to do this, that, or the other. And you could say, hey, let's do it together. That kind of thing. Yeah. And everyone is different because everyone on your team is different. So,
of course.
So, Melinda, who's been an impact in your life?
Well, I've had a lot of different people. Just like you were talking about the short little Italian guy. I had a Spanish teacher because I love Spanish and everybody thinks I'm Spanish. I'm not. I'm American. And I wanted to take his class and everybody said, oh, he's so tough and he's so mean and da-da-da-da. Went into his class. He screamed at me one day. I don't remember what he said, but I said, I'm just going to chill out because I know how these people are. The next thing, I was his best student. My friend's like, oh, you're trying to get brownie points. And he just loved me. I don't know what it was. The connection was there. He was one of the best professors in Spanish that I ever had. I never had to study. I knew everything that he was coming around. And you have to take the final because when he developed the formula to do the test and all that, I got all the points. And he was one of the greatest teachers that I ever had. And when he died, I was like so sad. Because he was a wonderful person. Everybody talked about he's nasty and he's this, but he just came from a strict background, what I'm used to, and I guess that's why it didn't bother me, it didn't hit me, and I just did what he asked, and I did well in his class. Like he picked out a certain amount of kids who were going to get A's and B's and C's, and that's it in college. So yeah, you had to be in that category, and I wanted to be one of the top. And I just followed through whatever he said. And I was never late because you couldn't be late because he gave you a test at a certain time. And you're walking in the door, he's already taking it, collecting it. And you're like, oh my God, I missed it. The quiz. You can't miss the quiz. That's a grade, So that's one of. But in my real life, my mom is a great inspirer, influencer, and strong person in my life because she came from the Caribbean and she came here with just the clothes on her back with her twin sister who has passed on. And she said to me, growing up as a little kid, I'm the first of the four. And she said to me, Melinda, I want you to do incredible things with your life. Do not come here and waste time. Time is of the essence. Do things with your life. So she always encouraged me to go to school after high school, go to college. And she doesn't have a college degree, and I did. So I have a bachelor's in journalism, communication arts. And she always said, I leave it to you to get more skills, more knowledge, because knowledge is power. And it is true. It rings true. So she's a nursing assistant or whatever, and she didn't do much with maybe going back, but I did. Eventually, I went back to get my special education degree from Hofstra University. And I'll tell you, she was tough. She was only 5'2". She's a little tough lady. I don't know if my sisters remember the toughness about her, but I do. She never hit me. I never got beaten by her, but I remember in her tone, look, you got to get with this and do this, because the Caribbean tone came out, and I heard that, and I was like, reverence, okay, because my dad, he spoiled me rotten. I do whatever with him, and just, so I look exactly like him. But she's one of the top inspirators, and she would be proud to hear this segment, me talking right now, about, we're talking about the humanity, bringing it together, and how it affects the human connection at work and making it work. Like you said, Sandy, you don't have to have the same strategy, but if you know how to get to the answer, arrive at the same answer with the same solution, that's all that matters. So if someone did some other strange, like I have a little system or some mathematical strategy that I learned from teaching and learned from being in the education field that I give to students that I know want to get fast. When they get on a test, you don't have to waste time. How to get, like, multiply 25 times whatever in a certain way, and you will get the answer 100% correct. As long as you don't skip any of the little tricks, you will get it correct. So I learned things like that. It makes you more efficient, more fast. So, someone asks you to do this, you do it in your head with that little method. They're like, well, how did you do that? Oh, no, I just know. I love to do my math in my head. And I won't tell people the strategy. But it, like you said, it doesn't have to be the same. But if we all arrive at the same solution, the same answer for that problem, whatever it is, that's all that matters. And another thing is that I've learned in that people who have impact on others' lives, whether it's a parent, a student, or a teacher, or an artist, someone talented in the field that they may be passionate about. Usually those people are a little bit unique. They're not like the straight normal people that they're a little different. They might be a little stern, a little firmer, but they have personality. And that's one thing I've learned about people have influence on your life. They might be strict and telling you this, and do this, and, telling you what to do. But when you talk to them and get past that tough shell, they're really human just like we are. And some of them laugh and you sit there like, oh my God, they made me scared of him the whole time, but he was so funny and so this. I found that with a lot of people who change people's lives, they have that paired in their personality. So I do think that our parents and people in our schools, teachers, people on television in the fields of communication arts, for instance, for me, I like Mr. Joey Jackson. He's one of the phenomenal speakers, and I've met him in person. I know him very well, and he's wonderful with his field. Certain people, the education just enriches their personality over using the speech. And So everybody has different skills and talents, but again, is how we use it at the workforce and how to help everyone, bring it together, not work against each other, but together as a team and move from, like Brian said, if that conversation was not had, but it's begun, this dialogue is consistent. We're continuing to use the dialogue about that, whatever job or situation that we need to make that change. And I think that's the reality of work.
Yeah. What is it that's the meme that says if you don't listen to the people that you work with, you're going to find that you're going to have people that don't talk?
Yeah, I agree with it.
That
Yeah.
is deep. That is deep.
Yes.
How about you, Chris? Who's inspired you?
Well, to be honest with you, each and every single one of you. And I'm being completely honest, and I'm not fooling around with that either. I mean that. And that goes for you too, Graham, because I know you can be the best. I guess not Jack Nicholas you can be the best Graham that you can be, you know. But what the person really has inspired me the most, and that it has the best characteristics that I've ever seen in a leader, has been none other than the very first job I've ever had, and his name was Craig Bishop. He really believed in me to such an extent. He understood how I thought, what I was about, what my gifts, talents, and skill sets was bringing to the table each and every single day. He even understood the learning abilities, not disabilities, but learning abilities that I had. And he understood how to work with them and make it better for me to learn what I needed to learn. And that's why I became a crew trainer in less than 6 months. I was a crew trainer for McDonald's for 3.5 years. And he was a really influential person, and his characters and traits was just spot on because he didn't lead from the front as most probably other leaders do. They just want to be able to say, hey, I'm in this said position. This is what I'm about. It's about me, me, me. He really led from the front by saying, hey, I'm there with you in the trenches. Let's get the job done. Whatever I can be of service, let me know. And he even said to many times, if I don't know the question to it and also the answer to it, maybe I could ask someone else that very same question and get the answer to it. It's like, I don't know, but we'll find out. And that's always stuck with me ever since when I was started working at age 16.
There's nothing wrong with asking for help if you don't know how to do something or you don't know the answer, Chris. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. I don't think it shows weakness. I think it shows intelligence.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
I think when you don't act to talk and speak up and ask the question, then it's a bad thing because you never know.
That's correct.
No one's going to know what you're thinking. You're doing your job or whatever your job, and then you blank. You're like, how do you do that? So if you don't ask it, no one can help you. No one can read your mind.
That's right. We're not mind readers. We don't know what's going on in somebody else's head. And that's the thing that people have to realize. You know, we can't assume things because we don't know for sure. And you take that word, it makes an ass out of you and me. So we shouldn't be doing a lot of assuming. It's better to ask.
A lot of people don't feel comfortable asking or saying that they don't know.
That's true.
And is that because of their insecurity? Is it because they don't feel comfortable expressing that to the leader?
I think it has to do with how they define themselves and their job. People who, and I'll use whether it be a leader or a teacher or someone in academics. I mean, people in certain positions believe it's their job to give other people answers because that's why they're there.
Yeah.
And my question is, what if your job wasn't to give someone answers? I mean, we give answers so gratuitously. I mean, look at any social media post. Someone's asking for somebody's opinion on something, and then they you respond in kind with an answer.
Or they're giving their opinion without being asked for it.
Correct. So I think people believe that whatever position they're in, they're there because they have some semblance or level of knowledge. And we equate that knowledge to actually being competent in a job, but they may not be the same thing. And I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just saying that we never asked the question that just because I know a whole bunch of things about a golf swing doesn't mean that I can articulate it or I'm a good, teacher. I mean, there's a lot of athletes who retire, get into coaching, but are terrible coaches.
Yeah.
Because they can only articulate what they do and how they did it, but they don't make the distinction that who they're talking to isn't them. It's like that adage where, a person goes to the doctor and the doctor says, well, what should I take, doctor? And the doctor says, I don't know, I'm not you. It's like, we're looking for the advice outside, but we rarely contemplate that maybe our experience is enough. I mean, that's ultimately what teaches us. I mean, it develops us as our experience, not the wonderful things that somebody tells us, right? I mean, when somebody told me once that it was kind of really fascinating. And so I was sitting in a group with people, and person leading the group made a comment and said, life is inherently meaningless and empty. And it hung out there for a while. And, at first it's kind of like, that's kind of interesting. And then he said it again. And then he said it again. And then he started to cackle after he said it again and again and again. And then you started to realize what he was getting at, that it's interpretation all the way down. And the only reason we have meaning is because we assign language to it. But it wasn't what he said, it was a distinction that I had to come to for my own sense. Like, I had to discover that for myself and experience what that meant for me, because what he was saying could have been completely different. And I think that's, when I got that really clearly, it was really fascinating, because you teach someone how to do something or tell them how to do something. And I think Sandy may have mentioned that, you can, give them answers, but until they actually discover it for themselves or teach themselves, it doesn't make a difference, right? I have a very good friend and mentor who used to he was in the Peace Corps. And he said back then, this was, I think, the late 70s and so forth of the Peace Corps, the Peace Corps used to give aid to a lot of countries and just give them aid. And what it did was it actually fostered dependence, that they were dependent on the aid, but they didn't know how to cultivate or do stuff without the aid. So they finally changed methodology. It's a little like leading someone to water, but you can't force them to drink. Like, it's their experience that makes the difference, not what a teacher or a leader or a coworker or somebody says. It's what you end up experiencing from it and getting clear for yourself that makes the difference. I mean, Chris, I can tell you that it's an interpretation all the way down, and your entire world is completely made up from your point of view. Now, conceptually, you might get that, but until you actually experience that and it starts showing up for you, it won't click. It'll just be concept, right? You teach someone math skills or language skills or anything, until they actually experience what it means to do something, it's just words.
Right.
And I think leadership is more like that.
Right. Well, it's just what brings to mind is the conversation that I had with you, and you asked me, why do you want to have more knowledge in everything? It's because the more knowledge that I have, not only will I become better for it, it's because if I don't seek out the knowledge, then how am I going to be better if I don't have it? And that's why I was getting to with you in that conversation, because I want to be better at what I don't know. And if what I don't know is going to hurt me, then I need to be able to know what I need to know that won't won't hurt me in the long run, but it's going to get me to where I need to go, and it's going to help me prepare over those obstacles and be able to say, hey, I can answer this, I can articulate that, and everything.
And my question was why? It's like a student who wants to get an A in a class. Okay, good. You have an A. Now what? You now have the knowledge. Now what?
Right.
What's next? Like, it's an endless cycle. And I'm not saying that you're not looking for knowledge. I'm just saying is the way you are is enough. That in order to get more knowledge, to become more, is just striving for, because what I'm essentially saying is I'm not good enough now, but I will be when. But suppose you already are, like Graham is a marathon runner. He is. Be that. And then you can get knowledge from that. It's not in order to, it's just because maybe I just want to. Like, you see what I'm saying? It changes the meaning behind it. That you can do it because you enjoy doing it. I love it. I just want to do this because I love doing this. I'm not doing this because I have to do it to make my parents happy or make more money or look good in front of people. Frankly, I don't really care. I just do it because I enjoy doing it.
It's like personal development. But realizing you're doing it because you want to do it, you enjoy it, you enjoy learning new things. But having that realization that today you are enough. You have what you need for today.
Yeah.
And you're going to have what you need for tomorrow. Each and every day, you're always going to be enough. And you don't have to say, well, I'm going to be enough when I get this degree, or I do this, or I do that. And then, it happens. And then you go, no, well, so what's next,
Yeah.
And are you not enough anymore? Because what's going to be next?
Absolutely. And I'm not saying you shouldn't want to do it. I'm not saying it's one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember I had a friend of mine, mentor, who he told me this story once, and he teaches golf, and he, for all intents and purposes, he had enough money, job was going well, family was going well, he was on vacation in Hawaii, and he went to go lay down in a hammock, which were in between two trees. He laid down, and the first thought that came in is, wow, it's kind of sunny here. Why didn't they put this in the shade? And he said to himself, is this all it is? Like, is this only the way it works? Like, it's never good enough. And he just got really clear that, like, wow, maybe it doesn't have to be this way. Like, maybe he can shift it in such a way that it's not always about more, better, different. It's just, this is what it is, and I can do it because I love it. I mean, you ever watch kids do stuff? They do it because they enjoy doing it. They only start doing it for various reasons because parents get in the way and tell them, make this basket to win the NBA championship. Well,
or they've never felt that they weren't enough until somebody told them they weren't enough.
Absolutely.
And then we were crazy enough to start to believe it. It's like that morning affirmation that you are enough today.
Yeah.
Like, don't even put that on my mirror. I know that,
Yeah. Wasn't there a comedian once who put on his tombstone and said, I knew this was going to happen? Like, I mean, at some level, you just have to kind of laugh at it.
Yeah.
It's a game to some extent. You're just playing this game, and we're making it up. And why not make it up where you have fun doing it?
Yeah, enjoy every day to the fullest, for sure. So as we have about 5 minutes left, one of the things that Sandy had said about leading, or maybe Brian too, leading from the front or what, it made me think of a visual of, there are leaders that lead from the front, and I think of a mother duck with all of her ducks going behind her. Mm-hmm. And then I think of leaders that actually lead from within, that they're in the group, the mother duck is in the group of ducks, and they're all moving forward together. And then you have leaders that lead from behind that say, hey, I want everybody else to be not necessarily better, but I want to make sure that everybody else is doing the best that they can do. Where do you see yourself in that? In the front, in the middle, or at the end?
I don't see myself in any of those places. I don't see myself as a leader. I don't describe myself that way. I don't describe myself anyway, I guess, in many ways.
If you were a leader, even though you wouldn't call yourself a leader, let's just say you had 10 people working.
Probably somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm. That's where I would imagine with your mind, with your philosophy and the way you think, I would think that you would be there in the middle.
Yeah,
and I would find myself either in the middle or behind, leading others to be better.
That would be me. I would be in the middle or from behind. That's where I would see myself.
What about you, Sandy?
Well, I think that those are the better places to be, because I mean, the only time as a leader I was ever in the front like that is when I was teaching skiing, and you have to be in the front. But once you show them what to do, then you step back and you had everybody go down the hill and show you that what they'd learned in terms of how to turn and how to do whatever. But initially I had to show them, so I had to be at the front. But after that, I was at the back.
So you have to bring them down backwards.
Yeah. Well, I would think in some reason, when I think of healthcare, that in some respects, as a educator, you need to be in the front. And then when you're teaching them the hands-on, you're literally in the middle.
In the middle, yes.
And then towards the end, when they know what to do and you're letting them out to practice those skills, you're like from behind, like a mother duck going, come on, you can do it. You can do it. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, Carla, because I actually taught opposite. I taught doing it with them.
Well, initially, like when I taught oral self-care, Brian, so first I would demonstrate. And what I would do, I'd actually demonstrate it in their own mouth. I'd have them hold a hand mirror and I'd do it. And then I'd hand them a toothbrush and say, okay, show me what you just learned. And then they would demonstrate it back. And if they had a problem, they would say, so, well, I'm having trouble over here. I said, okay, well, what do you think you can do to fix that? And, you know, that way you could see if they actually learned what you showed them and if they're going to be able to do it on their own. But, you know, it just depends on what you're leading, you know, in terms of, by and large, when you're leading a team, I think that, you know, the leader shouldn't be pushing from the front and imposing only their views and the way they do things on their team, because I don't think it's a good way. I don't think it's a good way to lead. I don't think people like that. I don't think that they're comfortable with it. I don't think they're going to be happy with it. I think when they have input or when they clearly understand what the parameters of their job are, and you just let them go and do it however they want to do it, why not? I mean, what difference does it make? I don't see why it has to be done the way you do it. I think as long as we get from A to B and, you know, we get what we want, why do we care how they got there? I mean, I think that that's just annoying, to tell you the truth.
Carla, imagine being in front of a group of people, and instead of looking at them as clients or an audience, like students, what if it was a compilation of 20 geniuses in front of you, and it's your job to get their genius out? See, you use them to teach you and coach you.
Mm-hmm.
See, they made me a better teacher because they gave me the answers. I just asked questions.
Right.
Way better way to deal with it, Brian.
Yeah. It shifts the way, and it's funny because when I was still teaching, they had this whole big mass exodus of, you know, belief into flipping the classroom. And ironically, not one person in education knew how to flip a classroom, because I didn't flip it the way that they intended to. They intended it to give them work, so they did it and came in the classroom better prepared. And I wasn't silly enough to believe that a student was actually going to do something like that. But like flipping the classroom was actually having them teach the class. It's their class. So I would have a syllabus, yes, but I couldn't tell you how many times a semester or a month. I would leave it open to them. What are we talking about today? here's the syllabus. You tell me, what do you want to know about this? How do you want to learn? Where do you want to learn? Where do you want to go? Because that gives them the ability to create it for themselves. So that
you empowered them, Brian.
What was that?
You empowered them.
Well, and they'll remember it better, Chris. People don't remember as much stuff that they've been spoon-fed. But if you encourage them to think and come up with the answers, you have a far better chance they're going to remember it.
Yeah.
You know, that's really what, as a teacher, you should be doing, encouraging them to think and to problem solve and to come up with the answers, because that way they'll just do so much better. And there's no reason why, you know, again, you put a reasonably intelligent group of people together, they'll come up with anything you could think of.
Yeah.
So why not let them do it?
People just don't ask enough questions from a leadership perspective. They're not curious enough. They live in the framework that I know the answer and it's my job to tell you the answer. So they, you know, the minute you go into I know, you stop listening.
Yeah. Why would they? Who cares what you know? It's better to encourage them to ask questions and to give the answers. And that's why interactive exercises, like, you know, you teach us concept to a certain degree, and then you put them into groups or put them into pairs and let them try it out and come up with, you know, like the exercise we did today, you know, in terms of, you know, what do you think makes a good leader? What are the traits of a good leader? Whatever. So give them, you know, give a group of people, divide them up and let them come up with the things that they think make a good leader. I mean, you'll hear all kinds of things. And again, they may even come up with stuff you never thought of.
Yep.
And good for them. And I always, when I do those kinds of things, because what I teach is not rocket science, I basically premise it by saying there are no wrong answers. So don't be afraid to say whatever you think or whatever your experience has been, because basically this stuff is not, it's not cut and dried. There are literally no wrong answers. So everybody can voice their opinion and their perspective and their experience however they like. It's just like dealing with stress. You know, stress is different things to different people. And how you deal with it, again, people deal with it in different ways, but sometimes some of the way that somebody has dealt with it, and they go, wow, that's really interesting. I should try that. You know, it's just a matter of, yeah, there are certain things that you can do, but it doesn't mean you have to do that. It doesn't mean it's going to work for somebody else. It's a matter of giving people the opportunity to voice their opinion and their experience, and we can all learn from them. I mean, you know, it's turn it about. It's much better.
For sure.
To run a class of any sort, or, you know, directions and instructions and all that kind of thing. Let them, you know, come up with what works for them.
Yeah.
And why would we care?
In one of the past jobs that I was in, I'd have people come up and complain to me about X, Y, and Z, and I wasn't in a leadership position, but I just said, okay, so what do you think the solution is going to be? And they look like, oh, I'm supposed to come up with a solution? Well, yeah, why don't you? You know, they're like, yes, you can have a solution to this. What would you think would work? Well, I don't know. Well, give it some thought and propose the situation. You know, propose the solution. Oh, well, so-and-so in the other office, it's my manager, won't you know, won't listen to anything I have to say. I said, well, you know what? We can work out something for the office. We can propose it. We can all sit down and talk about it, you know? And they were like, oh. And then I never heard about it. I never heard of them complaining anymore because they didn't want to come up with a solution. It was easier to complain about it. So
fair enough. That doesn't help.
Yeah.
And see, Carla, that is why I believe in my heart of hearts that we tend to go more negative than we do the positive.
Oh, absolutely.
And if we can shift that focus from the negativity and go into the power of positivity and the power of possibility, and I even dare say what Brian has taught me many times over now is the power of transformation, then that is what we really want to be able to do with people each and every single day. And you have to expand on that. Ask what you want as opposed to what you don't want, Brian.
Well, say it exactly the way you want it. Like, be clear. the brain doesn't process negative words and or negations. So if I ask you, don't think of a blue tree, what do you think of?
Blue tree.
Right. You can't not think of something without thinking about it.
Don't hit it in the lake.
Yeah.
Don't hit it over to the right.
Absolutely. I think
That's from a golfer. It's that 6 inches between your ears.
Well,
you know?
I think I mentioned this to you. They've done studies in the workplace, and the number one cause of injury is typically slips and falls. And the slips and falls tend to occur where they put those little yellow signs with the person that's like on their back falling in the circle, because the brain processes it, says, oh, that looks like fun, let me do that. Ooh, and they fall over. Right? It's the same reason why don't smoke ads don't work. Where it says don't text and drive, what do you think people hear? Text, drive, don't.
Yeah.
Right.
The dry yet? Yeah.
So the subconscious or unconscious can't process the negative emotion or word. So you have to be really direct with it. So instead of saying, hey, Chris, don't ask for what you don't want. It's like, well, I don't want people to be mean or not treat people with humanity. Say, I want you to be whatever. Right? It's the same thing of like telling a little kid, don't jump on the bed. Right? What do? They jump on the bed, as opposed to saying, so-and-so, stop jumping. Right? You have to be direct and say it. It's the way our brains work. It's how you language things, and that has a critical aspect to it.
That's why it's so important, Brian.
In the media, is very good at distorting it and manipulating the message.
But you have to, if you're going to be successful in a leadership position, you have to be an effective communicator. You absolutely have to.
Yeah.
If you can't communicate effectively with impact and influence and clarity, you're going to have a lot of trouble.
Yeah. So, I don't want you to think I'm a bad salesperson, but you might lose all your, see what I'm saying? So by now saying that, I've now instilled the thought that now you think I'm a bad salesperson, which you might not have had prior, and now you do.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, okay, well, great. How did that happen? That's great. Good language, right? I mean, so, I don't want you to think that I'm incapable of doing this, but I've had a really tough time and I'm working hard to get better. Well, I might not have thought you were this way, but now I am. So,
I don't want you to think I'm offending you, but.
Yeah, it's like saying no offense, but.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to offend you. It's just interesting because the language, and Chris, I think I mentioned this to you, is just you pay attention to how people write stuff. Look at people's posts. Look at what people say in the media, in videos, how they describe their situations. It gives you a very clear picture of where they're coming from with it. So, we're just not clear enough a lot of times with people. I mean, how often have you had a salesperson call you and you're like, no, thanks, I'm not really that interested, and you hang up, and they call you 17 times over the next 4 days. Right? Well, you weren't direct with them. You didn't say, no, I'm not interested. You kind of gave them an opening. Right. So until you
say,
no. And if they keep calling you, then that's another problem. But that's
that's another conversation.
Okay, Brian, I'll stop calling you.
Yeah. I have another wonderful meme for you in terms of asking for directions and so forth.
I think a lot of people, especially in sales, they're so attached to that sale that they don't give the people permission to say no. And you can just say, hey, look, if this is not for you, then that's okay, and then people will go, good, I'm not interested. Fine, no problem.
They're trained to always be closing. I mean, that's just the nature of what it is. I mean, they're told that you have to do it a certain way. But
well, sadly, they're trying to close on the first or second go round, and it never happens that way.
All right.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
So where do you find yourself, Melinda? In the front, in the middle, or the back?
I say in the middle.
I think we're all in the middle.
Yeah.
Good place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation, everybody. I hope everyone has enjoyed it. If you're watching this on the replay, feel free to use the hashtag replay and let us know where you're coming in. Watching from. If you're on to watching this live, thank you for participating with us. We hope you've gotten a lot of value out of it. We'll be back on Tuesday for Share and Care with Sandy, Conversations for Humanity on Wednesdays, and Thursday as another Humanity Happy Hour.
By the way, Graham switched to thinking of a purple tree, just so you know.
What?
That's funny.
So maybe one of these days we'll get Graham on here live. So
yeah. Okay, listen, everybody have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Take care.